it was a great opportunity. Spent 7 years there, and while I was there, we grew from 11 locations to 27. We grew from a half billion in assets to 1.2 billion in assets. We went from losing a million to making 1.2, losing a million to making 7 million. So it was pretty successful run there, but they had different plans, and God had different plans for me. Today, I have two companies that I launched out of that. One is Empowerment Strategies and Solutions, which is leadership training, speaking, coaching company, does behavioral assessment, and then I also have Care of Alabama, which is a financial literacy campaign. Today, I'm going to talk to you about winning with money, and it's 5 P's of financial success. I'll set up a couple of things. Let me kind of get a gist of where we are. How many of you currently have a bank account? What type of bank account? Do you know? Do you know what the other options are for bank accounts? So that's the thought. How many of you already have know your credit score? How many of you know what a credit score is? How many of you know that you should know your credit score? Everybody raise your hand. Right? And why should it matter? We'll talk about those things. How many of you have purchased a car? You purchased it yourself? Cool. Hopefully I can share with you those who haven't. Hopefully I can share with you some things that will help you get a better deal on your car. Okay? How many of you have something other than just like a standard bank account? Okay. What do you have? All right. What does that stand for?
Interest rate.
Individual retirement account. Right? You see what I'm saying? So think about how old are you? 18. But how many of you would think, why would I have an IRA if you knew what it was? Like, he probably wouldn't have gotten an IRA. He was thinking it was an interest renewing account or something, right? He just knew you were going to make some money off of it, right? So you see what I'm saying? So there's so much information out there, and information or lack thereof can cost you, or the right information can help you. How many of you graduate in a month and a half? Oh, okay. How many of you know what you're going to do with your grown-up self? All right. How many of you have the money to do what you want to do with your grown-up self? All right. You can get to see. You can get to see what the theme of today is. It's really, to help you have a foundation. I can't teach you everything in an hour and some change. And make sure you let me know when I'm supposed to wrap up. Give me like a 10 minutes. Okay. We'll just keep going.
Brantley, what time will we get out? 29. Okay.
So, but have some understanding and hopefully have some tentacles that you can use to connect all the dots. And the overall theme is, hey, guys, you have to be disciplined around your finances just like you have to be disciplined around everything else. You need good decision making when it comes to your finances, and you need to have a proper perspective on money. So, what does your future look like? You guys are really at that point. I know some of you, how many of you are like, I'm ready, but I'm not really ready, a little dreading, kind of wondering if this thing I've been waiting on for all these years, if I'm really ready to hit it. Being honest, yeah, it's exciting, but it's also a little nerve-wracking at the same time. So let me ask you a couple questions. If I were to give you $1,000, tell me, what would you do with it? If I gave you $1,000, spend it. Okay, there's one that's going to spend it. Invest. What do you know where you? Okay. So he knows what he would do with it, but he doesn't know where. If I knew what I was wanting to do with it, and someone walked up and gave me $1,000, you need to be ready to move. Because if you invest, waiting could potentially do what? Cost you money, right? Like if there's a hot tip or a hot stock, or like What's going on today in the stock market? It's going down. So everybody thinks that's bad. If I gave you $1,000, would the stock market going down be bad? No, because you can now get in at a value, right? So understanding that. So what else? Who else would have something? What would you do with your $1,000? Okay, cool. So, all right. Anyone else? Pay off debt. That's the adult in the room, right? Pay off debt. So, you know, and we're gonna do something here that's it's interesting. I didn't give you any clue or anything, but we kind of hit. There's 4 money personalities, and it's gonna kind of blow your mind when we get to do that. Now, I will apologize up front. I used AI to help me when it was putting the answer together, and I sent you wrong one. But I do have the right responses, so I'll read them to you as we go through it. So, the question is, are you playing to win or just trying to survive? The most millionaires in America aren't people who make a bunch of money in their job or their profession. Do y'all realize that? Most millionaires are people who are money smart, money wise, those who know what to do with their money. It's not how much you make, it's how much you what? Keep, yeah, and put to work for you. Okay? So that's what we want to talk about today as we go through. I played ball with some guys that just for being a football player, they got their name called in the draft and then they got a $4 million check. I know a lot of guys who did that and they're broke today. I have other classmates who got a job making $65,000 a year, and now 30 years later, they're retired as millionaires. Okay, so it's not what you do. But what I want before we get into the overall of the 5 P's of finance, I really want to talk with you about something that I believe I told you I'm a pastor, so I will teach you from a faith standpoint, but I'm going to teach you from a business standpoint as well. And that's about giving, the power of giving. Giving shifts your mindset when it comes to money, okay? And if I were to ask you for 10% of what you have right up front, what's your natural reaction? Hey, that's mine, right? Now, from a faith standpoint, the Bible says that, that if you give the first 10, then the other 90 is blessed, and things break less, and all of that. And I believe that and agree with that. But I have worked in companies from small companies all the way to multi-billion-dollar companies. And guess what they all do? They all set aside a percentage of their money to give and support. And I believe that's a principle of giving. Now think of it this way. If there's a pond or a lake or whatever, and if water only comes in, what happens to that pond or lake? It builds up and it becomes stagnant actually, unless you have to get so much more fresh water in just to keep it from getting stagnant. But if you have an outlet where it's able to flow out, flow in, flow out, then guess what happens? Life thrives there. Think about a pond that's stagnant, algae and all that. It's raining, but it's not enough to do it. But when you go to a river or a lake or a stream, you don't see that stagnant buildup. It's life, but it's not the fullness of life that's continuing. And I believe that giving is a principle that goes with that. Okay? Give to others, not just some of you are like, yeah. He said, I'm going to give my first 10% to me. Right? And that's okay. But I would say that first 10 to 15, 20% needs to be done for something other than spending, and we'll talk about that. All right? So here's the 4 personalities. Now, y'all remember the question I asked before we ever got to this? Somebody said, he said, I'm going to spend mine, right? Right? We had a spender, we had an investor, and we had someone that said they were going to save, and then we didn't really have the border. But but he's probably more along in this line when it comes to paying off debt. Why do you want to get your debt paid off? So you can do what? Ultimately, if you didn't have the debt, which one of these would you be?
I'd like to say that I'm the savior, but I might
99% of us, yes. Not what you want to be, but what you are. But you see, understand? Now, what did he say he would do if he didn't have debt? He'd buy a house. And I'm not knocking him because I did the same thing. I made money choices that delayed, not denied, but delayed something that I really want. You have the opportunity to avoid what we've done. You have the opportunity to avoid getting a bunch of debt and then get your house, okay? And get there sooner and quicker, right? So y'all just mess with him and noodle him a little bit when y'all get back. All right, let's. I'm gonna pass these out, and as I said, I'm gonna read out the responses because it gave this the one I ended up sending gave the answers to the same answer to every one of them. So as Ms. McMillan is passing that out, what you're going to do is you'll fill that out. And after you, but don't answer any questions. I'm going to give you the actual responses, okay? I'm going to give you your choices, the multiple choice. And each letter that you choose is actually going to have a value, and there's a key at the back that you'll put in your points, and then it'll kind of tell you which one of these that you are. Now, listen, there's no pass fail. Just be honest with yourself. Don't think too much on the answers, because if you think too much, you're probably going to try to pick the answer that you think you want to be, not who you really are. Okay. What's your name? Mr. Nicholas. Mr. Nicholas. His first reaction was, I wish I was this, but I'm probably this. Okay, and that would be a lot of it. Y'all ready? Question number one. Make sure that it's getting reorganized. When you get money, what's the first thing you usually do? A, spend it right away on something I've been wanting. Put a portion in savings or emergency fund. Leave it alone and don't pay much attention to it. Invest or look for a way to make it grow. And if you don't have the ability to do one of those yet, just answer which one you would like to do if I gave you that $1,000. All right. Everybody get that? Number two is, how do you feel about budgeting? And you may not know what budgeting is, but we're going to talk about that. Budgeting is just putting a plan around your money. A is it's too restrictive and takes the fun out of spending. It's important. I like to plan where my money goes. I've heard of it, but don't really use one. I use it to make room for investing or big goals. Number three, what's your approach to shopping? I buy things I like, even if I don't need them. If you got a lot of stuff in your closet that you don't wear and never wore or wore once, that's probably you. I compare prices and try to stay within a budget. C, I shop without much thought or plan. D, I shop with long-term value in mind. Four, what do you do when a financial problem comes up? Try not to think about it and hope it goes away. dip into savings to cover it, panic or avoid dealing with it. D, problem solve and explore multiple solutions. All right. Number 5. Ready? Everybody ready? Number 5. How often do you check your bank account or credit score? Some of you don't know what a credit score is. Some of you didn't have a bank account. Just rarely. I don't like thinking about money. Regularly, I like to stay on top of things. Only when I think there might be a problem. Frequently, I use the information to make strategic decisions. Six. How do you feel about giving money to others, charity, church, friends, etc.? I give when I feel like it, especially if I have extra. I plan a percentage of my income to give. I don't think about giving much. I give, but only when I know it will have an impact. 7. How do you feel about taking financial risk like investing? I avoid risk. I'd rather spend on fun now. B, I'd rather save than take a chance. C, I haven't really thought about it. D, I enjoy it if there's a good potential reward. What's your 8? What's your biggest financial goal? Enjoy life and have fun while I can. Build up savings and stay financially secure. I don't really have one yet. Build wealth and create long-term financial freedom. Answer that, then when you flip over, you can answer and get the additional, you can see the answer key, then tally up your total. Finish tallying up your total, just look up so I know you finished.
Okay, like I'm right on the borderline. Like I had 20, so I'm right on that borderline between safer and although I feel like my husband and me got borderline with us spender and safer, so.
So you that could be green or not so.
All right. You're an avoider too? Okay. Yeah. I'm an avoider. Where are you, Alice? Safer. Nice.
There's
Carly,
no good about it.
Carly, what you got? Nice. So it's like a personality test. Sometimes people put what they want to be rather than what they are.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm just a truth teller.
All right, is everybody finished? Everybody finished? All right, let's kind of see what the makeup of the class is. First of all, let me make it clear, there is no good or bad, it's just who you are. I mean, this is your relationship with money, okay? Your spender, which it says what? Enjoys being, spending, generous, but may struggle to save. The saver is disciplined, they secure, but may miss growth opportunities, opportunities to grow their money. The avoider, they're content with where they are, risk worsening their financial situation. So, like with that, they don't want it to get any worse, so they tend to like, okay, if I out of sight, out of mind sometimes, but they're not necessarily in a bad situation. It's not meaning they avoid doing the right thing for finance. They just avoid doing something different. Okay, and then the investor, that's your next billionaire. That's their goal, right? So let's look at kind of who we are. How many spenders do we have in the room? Raise your hand. Any spenders? Raise your hand.
Raise mine. Let's see it.
We only have 2 spenders? You thought you were a spender?
I know.
I'm good at budget.
Okay.
I mean, I got the saver, but I know I'm the spender, so I correct.
Yeah. All right, next, who's the saver? How many savers do we have? Okay. All right. How many avoiders do we have? Wow. Wow. Now, I would say it's because your teacher is an avoider, and she has been passing on her. Not yet. Next week. Okay. And what were you? You're a saver? Okay. And then the investor. Who's the investor?
President.
Yeah.
The president business.
That's you? Now, you said you would invest. Which one were you? Right here. Interesting. So were you close to being the investor? All right. Hey, guys, remember, there is no right or wrong answer. I would encourage you to, I'll get the correct one sent, and I would encourage you, keep this sheet, okay, for 2 reasons. All right, y'all ready? One is that once you get out and get a job and, start making more money, you may find your personality changes. Because right now you may have a limited amount of funds, and you may save more or be more likely to save because you have to save in order to get what you want. But at some point you may get a job where you make plenty of money and you can get everything you want, and you'll find that you spend a lot easier. Okay? The other part is you check them out. Y'all know what I'm talking about? That future spouse. If you're a saver and they're a spender, you might want to know that up front.
You did this on the first date.
Yeah, like say, listen, I find you really attractive, but I need to know, are you a spender or a saver? But seriously, it is a good. There are more relationship problems in marriages and in relationships in general that flow from money than anything else. Okay, so I know I made it as a joke, but it is reality. Please make sure that you understand that person that you are committing yourself to, or is committing themselves to. All right. Any questions on that?
So then, when that happens,
All right, let's kind of talk about the 5 P's. The first P, of course, to help you kind of remember it. It's about budgeting. And who in here was a budgeter? You were a saver and a budgeter. That's why you say you spend, but you actually spend within reason. Okay. So the main thing, what's the main purpose? If I were to ask you up front, what's the main purpose of a budget? Make it through your next paycheck? Good. Okay. Make sure you don't spend too much, so you don't blow it off. Now, if someone has debt, does that mean that they don't budget? No, not at all. Yeah, no, it does not. Debt is not necessarily a bad word. It's not a four-letter word if used correctly. Too much debt, inappropriate debt, and the wrong kind of debt is really bad. But when it comes to budgeting, it gives you direction, clarity, and the power to control your money. And as it said, instead of your money controlling you, a budget is like a game plan. When you're playing, you need to have plays and a strategy around what you're going to do, and it tells your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. It is amazing how fast your money can get away from you. It's amazing how many things come up that you don't plan for, especially today. When think about what we've seen happen in our economy and gas and eggs and all of that. Just imagine if you were just struggling to get from paycheck to paycheck, and then all of a sudden the things that you have to buy every day goes up. What happens? You find yourself having to rearrange your budget, right? But what if you don't have a budget? What if you have no idea where you're spending your money, but you have plenty of extra money, right? It's not that big a deal until the economy decides it wants to change, until things go up or down. So remember that game plan. Here's a couple things. Think about it as your financial playbook. Every dollar you make needs to have a purpose. Okay? You need to have a category for your money. I want to put this money here. I want to do this. I want to do this. And then at the end, and if you realize that there's more stuff, the way we used to say it, more week at the end of your money or month at the end of your money, you're in a deficit, right? And that happens to us. That happens to all of us at different times, different moments, different seasons, especially when you're starting out. You just need to have a budget so that you can correct that. Plan 3 things that you need to do, or 4 once you get to that point. But I told you about giving. I think you need to have a plan to give. I think you need to have a plan as part of your budget for saving and a part of your budget for spending. And then if there's something left, then you invest that piece of it. Budgeting is about giving you freedom. I know it seems restrictive, and for many moons of my life, that's the way I looked at budgeting. I looked at it as, man, I got money, I ain't worried about that. That's just restricting me, not letting me have the freedom that I want to have. Anybody want to guess what my personality was? Spender, right? Hey, I made this money, I can do what I want to with it. And I can just make some more. Until you go to work and you have a $100,000+ job and you wake up the next day and that job is gone. Right? It changes your mindset a little bit, right? And that's what you have to make sure you have a budget for, not just because you're trying to make it week to week, but that you have a game plan so that when the unforeseen happens, you can adjust to it. Who out here plays sports? You practice, and you have a certain thing you want to do, right? But if you get in a game and that's not working, you just keep beating your head. Hopefully, you should just keep beating your head doing the same thing over and over. You should adjust. It's so much easier to adjust from a plan than it is to try to create a plan in the midst of an emergency. Okay, so that's what the budgeting, it helps. It includes your needs. Make sure your budget includes your needs, the things that you have to have. You have to have. You need, food, water, shelter, right? You need transportation in order to get back and forth to your job. You need clothing, but you don't necessarily need Nike. You need clothing, and you need, the ability to do, but you don't necessarily need the top. So you have to decide. I think, have you taught that part yet? Where you talk about needs and wants versus wants. And then look at your future goals. How many of you told me you wanted to buy a car? Who said they want to buy? Who wants to have to buy a car in the next year or 3 years? Right? Have you started making that plan for it? Have you started budgeting for it? Maybe you don't, right? Just think about life in this sense. You would not go on a road trip. Well, you should not go on a road trip to a place you don't know without a GPS or some type of plan or strategy, right? And the longer that trip is, and the more intricate that trip is, and the more destinations and stops and things you want to accomplish on that trip, the more important that GPS becomes versus less. And we have a mindset, the more money I make, the less important the budget becomes. It actually can work the opposite because you can find yourself wasting a lot of money and more money without having a plan. So just like you wouldn't plan a long trip without a GPS or direction, your life, I'm 50, I'll be 55 in 2 weeks, okay? Just imagine living 30 plus years of your life just, hey, what do I do today? Well, if you don't put a budget in, that's what you're doing with your money for the next 30 years. You'll find yourself wondering why. Prioritize giving, whether it's tithing, donating, supporting a cause. Budgeting should include giving as a priority. That's Martin's take on that. All right. P2 has to do with putting back, or saving. Who all in here said they were savers? See the savers again? All right. Let's see if you're doing this. Saving is how to protect your future, prepare you for opportunities and emergencies. The first thing I want to talk to you about is emergency fund. How many of you are familiar with what an emergency fund is? Anybody want to tell me what an emergency fund is? Something unexpected happened. Yeah. How many of you, go home and ask your parents, Mom and Dad, do we have an emergency fund? You may get in trouble when you ask them that. Let me go back. I'm pressing the wrong button. There we go. Yeah, I went the right place. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. So when should you have a emergency fund? Always, right? Always. To give you a great example, my daughter, she's going to kill me for sharing this, but she had big plans, and her car messed up. And all of a sudden, those plans had to adjust. Why? Because you have to have your car to get to work, back and forth, to make money. And they're not going to say, oh, I tell you what, I know, you're young and all that, so why don't you just come get your car, take your car, and then just give us the money. When do they want their money? Right then, when they repair it. So when do you need it? Before you need it. The most important thing, you need an emergency fund before you need the emergency fund. All right? Save before you spend. If you always wait until after spending to save, you'll never have anything. So what's the order of building your budget in terms of priority? Save first? Who says save first? Give first. That's my philosophy, but not everybody agrees with that. I say give first, save, then spend. But a lot of times what we do is what? We spend first. Now, here's the thing I want you to understand. I'm going to skip past just for time. Skip past that, but still stay on P2. Listen. Take the philosophy that saving is you paying yourself. Okay? I didn't have this philosophy when I was your age. I didn't have this philosophy, when I was in my 20s and 30s. But if you learn to pay yourself first, then you will always be building your emergency fund, and once it's kept off, then you'll be able to begin to take that money. Don't start spending that money. Whatever you're putting aside for the emergency fund, don't start spending it once you hit your goal. Then start investing that or saving that for you. The most important person you need to pay after you've done giving is you. So how do you do that? If I give you $100, every $100 you make sure you say this part of it I want to set aside for giving, and then I want to set aside this part for saving. And say that that's 20%. Live off the other 80. Live off the other 80. And when you get a promotion, do what? Continue to live off of the 80. But what happens most of the time when people get that job, that promotion, they immediately go out and begin to spend differently than they were before. And that doesn't mean that you don't, if you have goals and different things like that, then you work it into whatever your budget allows. But do not immediately go out and begin to spend that amount. All right? Any questions on that? This next part has to deal with partnering with financial institutions. And I chose the word there, partnering, is because so many people have a bad relationship or bad thought process when it comes to dealing with, interacting with, and working with financial institutions. So hopefully today we're going to talk about it in such a way that you see that they are a partner. Use your credit wisely. Strong credit score helps the business on buying and major purchases. And then we'll talk about ethical borrowing. What's the main idea of banks and credit? Banks, financial institutions, and your credit score and all of that is all about having tools that help you reach your maximum potential. Okay? So remember I told you sometimes we think of debt. We hear the word debt and it's like, oh my God, they have debt. Debt in and of itself is not bad. Okay, so let's first of all talk about our credit score, and then we'll talk about purchasing a home and a mortgage. All right. So when you look at your credit score, once again, anybody want to tell me what a credit score is? Anybody know what a credit score is? Do what now? It can to be in the sense that he said is it related to how much the institutions trust you. It has an impact on how much they trust you. It can show how reliable you are or unreliable. Right? If I were to say I have a 3.9, what would you think of me in regards to, without knowing anything else about me, what would you think about me and my schoolwork? Slow? What's your, okay. What's the GPAs now? Because when I was going, it was 4.0 was the highest. I was gonna say, well, dang, what kind of students y'all have doing that?
Talking about credit score too, and I was like a 3.9.
No, I said,
even alive.
if I had a 3.9 GPA, what would you think? You sound pretty smart, right? Right, but you don't know anything about me. But all you have is a 3.9, and you say he's pretty smart. Now that doesn't mean that I'm smart. It could be I could be a really good cheater. Quick sidebar. This is a true story. I had a teammate that was so smart, but he was lazy. And he would cheat. And he created ways to cheat. I mean, he don't try this. If you do, I pray you get caught. But, and I'll know that I was the reason you tried it. But he went into the classroom the day before and put the answers on the desk in front of him, underneath. This was old desk. Yeah, I have to go back. I was in school 30-something years ago. It was flat. He taped the answers to the desk. Came in the next day and had, when the class, he put a mirror on his shoe. Now, first of all, he had to be smart enough to realize that the answer would be reversed in the mirror. And he had it set up correctly. Okay, I'm like, dude, I'm like, man, you could have just studied. He went to the class. Well, he got away with that. But then he was also lucky. We had a test, and it was me and this other guy. We were side by side. His name was H-O-W, mine was H-O-U. And the teacher thought we were cheating, so she moved me to the front because the test was really easy. And he needed, in this particular class, he needed a 96 to pass. Okay? She moves me, guess what? Right in front of him. And as soon as I sit down, he just said, yeah, thank you, Lord. And I knew I was trying to, like I'm pretty good side guy. I have no idea how I could see my paper. Okay? I turned my paper in, and he walks up right behind me, and I said, no, you didn't. I said, please tell me you didn't copy my answer. He said, yeah. I said, did you miss any of them on purpose? He said, no. I said, so you and I just made the same. He said, yeah, because I went back and changed the ones that I asked you before you came. And I don't even know why I told y'all that story, other than, yeah, don't cheat, study. But 3.9 tells you a lot about me, but it doesn't necessarily tell you the truth about me. But people will still make judgments about me. When you're applying for schools, what are they doing? Accepting you, and that's one of the big criteria. Well, that's exactly what your credit score does. People will see your credit score and have no idea of your character, but they'll make an assessment of your character based off your credit score. Okay? And so if you have a credit score that is low, then people will assume that you're high risk, that you are not trustworthy, or that you're not reliable, or that you don't pay consistently. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of the percentages, guys, but when it comes to your credit score, but there are certain things that impact your credit score, okay? When you pay, meaning if it's due on the 30th and you pay on the 5th and that is in the grace period, it's not a problem. You pay on the 6th, which is outside of the grace period, it dings you, okay? And it is a significant mark. I think it's around 30% or so of your grace. So if you pay late, you can pay every single month, pay late every month, and your score does this every month. But you paid your rent every month, but it was late. So what do you do in that situation? Talk to your creditors and get your bills changed so that you can pay according to that date. Okay? Also, what type of credit you have. Okay? If you have a car loan and a house loan, those are good. But it's also good to have like a credit card that shows revolving. Okay? But not too much of that. All right? All of those things go into your credit score. And there's others, like I said, I don't have time to get into all of them today. But when you take all of that, it adds up. And based on what you're trying to purchase, if you're under 600, you're pretty much out. That's the bottom. 800 and is like the 3.9 and 4.0. Okay, so most people fall in the 650 to 750 range. Okay, you want to try to get it above 7 and keep it above 7 as much as you can. All right. Why does that matter? Almost everything that you will purchase or be involved in that is a major thing will be impacted by your credit score. Okay? And I'm going to talk specifically about the car in a moment. But do you understand you pay more when they run your credit for your apartment? You may end up, your monthly may be the same, but you'll have to pay a security deposit, or someone else who has a good credit score doesn't have to come up with a security deposit. Okay? All right? So just things like that you need to be aware of. How many of you said you do not have a credit score at all? All right, here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. and it will instantly give you a credit score. And you need this, and you need to be able to build from this. First thing you can do that doesn't cost you anything, doesn't cost your parents anything, it doesn't hurt you at all, is to ask your parents to put you on their credit card as an authorized user. Okay? They don't have to get you a credit card. They don't have to change anything. They just call the credit card institution and say, add name to our credit card. And every time they pay, you are building credit. You're getting a score. You're getting a profile. You could have thousands of dollars and not be able to borrow money because you have no credit score, because you don't exist. Someone else could have a average, just above average credit score, not have the money you have, and be able to go and borrow money because they have a profile. So that's the most important thing for you guys being this close to graduating is that you get a profile. Get a profile started. The second easy thing you can do is get like a prepaid card in your own name. Go to your financial institution and say, hey, I want to get a secure credit card. And what you do in that case is you put, for those of you who have a savings account, you take that money from that savings account and you put it in into that secure. So say it's $300. Then what happens is you have secured that $300 credit limit, and every time you use it, pay it off, you're building your credit profile. Okay. So those are two easy things. The third thing you can do is get like a gas station. If you have a job, you can get like one of these gas station credit cards. If you do that, pay it off every month. Okay. Just get in the habit of paying it off every month. But you can use it that way. And the other part of that is a lot of these credit cards, guys will give you money back. How many of you use like the McDonald's app and things like that? When you're looking for a credit card, look for that in the credit card, the ones that give you rewards. I don't do this, but I had some coworkers in my past history. They paid all of their bills on their credit card. In other words, they had a credit card, it was $20,000 limit or whatever it was. Every month they would pay with that, so they would get, for every point that they spent, they would get it, then they would turn around and take their paycheck and pay off the credit card. So what were they doing? It was reducing the net effect or the net cost of what they were spending, because they were getting, say, for every dollar they spent, they were getting, 1 point. So if they spent $20,000, they had 20,000 points that they could turn around and use for flights, for vacations, for stuff. So same way the reward program works on your on McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or whatever. Okay. Really quick on two things on the cars, on the car and house. What's the first thing you look for when you're buying a car? Huh? Mileage, gas mileage. What about determining what you need? Right? I know you would do that, but a lot of times people who are inexperienced, they go to the car lot and not know. They go to the car lot and they don't know what they're gonna get. Well, what do you think the car lot guy's goal is? Yeah, he's not looking to get you out of there with the least expensive, most practical car, right? Most of the time, he's trying to upsell you and get you to buy something. Before I ever step on a lot, I already know. Now, I knew this before we had the internet, and now the internet makes it easy, okay? And I know y'all are like, dude, you lived before the internet? Yes, I was alive before the internet. Bought a car before the internet. So, but here's the crazy part. If you know what you want, you have control. Remember this, when you're buying a car, whose money is it? It's my money. Don't ever let, this is a life lesson, don't let someone else spend your money. Okay? So when I step on a car lot, I know which car I want. I know why I'm buying a car. My first car, I'm buying it for this reason. That car, when I'm buying my child a car. But before I go, I have an idea. Give you a real life story. I went to a local car lot, and I told him, I said, I want this car, and I want you to give me this much for my car that I'm trading in, and I want to pay you this much for this car. He was like, huh? I said, yep, that's the deal. And he was like, whoa. I said, no, there's no whoa. There's no, you can go back and talk to the guy in the back and your salesman and all that. I said, I need this much for this car. And he said, what? I said, no. I said, this is what Kelly Blue Book says. This is what this says. This is what this says. So I took the 3 of those. I have better mileage. My car is cleaner and all that. So this is what I'm asking for my car. And he said, I said, all right. I'm buying a car today. I'll buy that red truck from you if you give me this for this and sell me that one for that. I said, I'm going to go test drive it. I drove it to a car lot down the road, pulled up, and they were like, oh. I said, yep, I'm buying a vehicle today. I'll bring my car back here in a few minutes and I'll show you it, but this is what I'm asking for that car. And I want that vehicle right there, and I'll give you that much for it. So before I ever went to the parking, to the lot, I already had seen their cars. I shot when they weren't there. And the first guy thought I was joking. A few years later, I come back and I pull up in the vehicle, and he goes, well, when did you get that? I said, remember when I was in here before and I wanted this car and this? He said, yeah. I said, well, when you wouldn't do it, I went down the road and bought this car. Well, the next time, at that time, I said, I'll do this. He was like, okay, let me go get the contract. It's your money. It's your money. And when they're haggling, they're going to win. They're going to figure out, don't get talked into stuff you don't need. Already know whether you need gap insurance, which is the fact that when you drive your car off the lot, if it's a $10,000 car, you drive off the lot, it instantly becomes an $8,000 car. All right? If it's a brand new car, and I know there's no $10,000 car, but I'm just doing that for illustration. All right? Well, gap insurance says it'll cover the difference. Well, if it's a used car, they're probably not going to give you much on it anyway. You're going to end up paying more anyway. And if it's a brand new car, most of the time your insurance has gap. Your insurance company has gap, and it's less expensive. Okay? So just things like that to know and to understand. I never buy a brand new car. I let other people pay for the depreciation. In other words, I find a lesser model car, looks really good, and then unless you put a down payment down, okay? So if you buy a car, and back to your credit score, if you have a great credit score, what happens? You buy a car, they say, we'll give you the entire car, and you don't have to pay anything down. So you just keep your money in your pocket, right? But if you have a bad credit score, they'll go, we're going to charge you, you're going to have to pay 10% down, and then you're going to pay a higher interest rate. So you end up, there were scenarios and situations when I worked at the credit union, I was in insurance when I first began. There were people who had bad credit scores who would get a car and someone else would get the exact same car. Their monthly payment would be $100 to $150 more every month for the same car. The exact same car. Sometimes the worst car was more expensive. And then on the insurance side, when they put the credit effect on that, the insurance premium would be $600 for the good credit score, $1,200 for every 6 months for the other person. I saw people who got cars and then couldn't get insurance. So just be aware of that. All right. So next is buying a home. All of us probably at some point want to own a home. Is renting bad? Is renting bad? No. Is it great? No. So, but why would someone rent if they could purchase? Short term, temporary, or whatever, right? Or you don't have the credit profile to get a home. There are people who are paying more for their apartment that they will never own than I pay for my house. They are, and I'm not being ugly with this because sometimes you have to rent. I rent it. I mean, everybody goes through those seasons. Sometimes you have to rent, right? So that I'm not knocking renting, but this is the equivalent of renting. Money out, lighter, because that money will never create any value for you. It will never ever change. You know what you do when you rent? If I have a property and you rent from me, guess what you do? You pay off my mortgage. You're paying off my mortgage. So every time you spend, I take your money, pay off my mortgage, and my equity grows. Okay? So when you're looking at buying a home, you want to try to get into a home as soon as you can. But what are some of the things you need to look at when you're looking at purchasing a home? Interest rates. Why? Because most people make the commitment 15, 20, or 30 years. And the difference in the interest rate of a few percent just 3 years ago versus the end of the year, the interest rate, the difference on the exact same house was $1,000 a month. So let that sink in for a second. The exact same house in 2022-ish, in 2021, 2022, in the same house in 2024, 2025, I would pay $12,000 a year more. For how many years? Let's just say you paid it off in 10. How much more did you just pay for the same house because of interest? $120,000. So if you paid for that and had bad credit and couldn't get it refinanced, you would buy let's say it was a $300,000 house that was you were paying an extra $1,000 a month for, you would end up paying $600,000 for your $300,000 house. Crazy, right? But that's what a lot of people do. So what do you need to do? Protect your credit, number one. Build your credit, protect your credit. Make sure that you stay connected there. All right. But then let's talk about some things that you can do when buying a house actually saves you money. Actually gets you ahead of the game. There are some places that will give you 100% loan if you're a first-time home buyer. Protect your credit, because the biggest hurdle for most people getting into a home is not being able to pay for their home. Most people's homes, they pay the same, they actually pay more in rent than what they would be paying if they purchased the home. The problem is, if you don't have the money, you don't have the credit, and you don't have all this, you actually have to pay somewhere around 20% down. So let that sink in. Most of the houses in this area start at what? $200 and something thousand. So 20% of a $200,000 house is what? 40 grand that you have to come up with, right? Unless you qualify for first-time home buyer opportunity. And if you have never bought a home, you have good credit, you can do that. And there's a lot of institutions out there that have first-time home buyers. So you need to check them out. There's some other things that you have to do, but the down payment is your biggest hurdle. The next reason why you need to be what? Saving today for your home, right? Because it's a big hurdle. It's a big hurdle to get into a home. Other things you need to look at when you're purchasing your home: interest rates, also school zones, right? School zones, where it's located. Location is mission critical. Here's why location is mission critical. There are people who have purchased homes at the exact same time, and I just use this for numbers' sake, not how much house it's cost. Someone purchased a $100,000 home in this neighborhood, and someone else purchased a $100,000 in this neighborhood. This neighborhood has a poor school zone. The number one factor that will keep your home at its current value or virtually grow just a little is the school. Why? Because most people are buying their first homes to get in a place where their kids can have a good school. And if it's a bad school, no one wants your home. And who wants to buy that home? It's the people who can't get it somewhere else. Okay? Who can't afford it somewhere else. Same home, this home in 10 years will be worth $175,000 and this home will be worth $120,000. Okay? And while that's happening, every time you make a payment, your balance goes down a little bit, and then over time it starts to go down a lot. And the difference between what your house is worth, not what you paid for it, what it's worth, and what you owe on it is called equity. Okay? You want to build equity. Not what you pay for it. You can buy a $100,000 house, and in 5 years it could be worth $150,000 because everybody decides to move into that zone. Okay? And during that time you paid off 10, so your equity in that home may be $60,000. And you didn't do anything. Why is that important? When you have equity, y'all remember talking about buying a car? Let's say you have your home, you have $60,000 in equity, and you want to buy your teenager a car. You guys are old now. You're buying your teenager a car because that's how old you're going to be by the time you get the equity built up, right? And you're going to buy your teenager a car. You can take from your equity. You can take $25,000, walk down to the car lot and say, here's $25,000, I want that car. And then you walk, and now how much do you own your car? Nothing. The equity, the home equity line, you now have a $25,000 balance on that. But guess what? Instead of having to pay it back like in 5 years, like the car that's going to have you pay back in 5 years, you can pay it back over 10 years. It has a 10-year life on it. And if you decide you want to go on vacation and not pay it, you just pay the interest that month. And in 9 years, you can refinance it. And guess what happened 9 years later if you're in a good school zone? Your house has gone up. Now instead of having $50,000 or $60,000 in equity, you have $100,000. You can become your own bank. You can use it to pay for college for your kids. You can use it to pay for repairs around your home. You can use it for anything you choose if you have a good what? Credit score. Once again, you can't get to that money unless you have a good credit score. So I know that's a lot. Everybody confused? A little bit. Questions? No questions? All right. Now, you have your car, you have your house. I see everybody looking at the clock. Am I running late? Okay. All right. So, now you look at it and you have all of these things. You bought them, you purchased them, and now you want to protect them. Right? You want to protect them. When you're buying your home, let's talk about that first. You need to put insurance on it, right? When insurance companies first started, they used to actually call it fire hazard insurance. And that was because that's what kind of started the insurance industry, where this group of people would get together and say, okay, we're going to put in this lump of money to help protect our property. If it catches on fire, then we'll use it to pay and rebuild. When you're buying insurance, a couple of things that you need to be aware of is my home in a flood zone? If you purchase a home in a flood zone and you're thinking, where's the flood zone? Flood zones don't necessarily have to be close to a body of water. Okay? Anybody, all you know where Midtown, Legacy, not Midtown, but Legacy, Legacy Park, shopping right there on 15th Street on McFarland? all of that with a flood zone. You're thinking, well, exactly. But if you were to, if that was, and it used to be homes there before the tornado in 2011. It was all like rental property and homes. But every home there costs, on average, $1,000 more a year. And let me tell you why. If you get a home in a flood zone, you have to pay insurance, regular insurance on the home. Then you have to pay for flood insurance. Flood insurance is usually more expensive than the home insurance. Okay, so if you buy a house and it's in a flood zone, you're looking at adding $30,000 over the life of that home to whatever you're going to spend on it. And you may be, so my advice to you, when you're shopping for a home, don't fall into love with the home till you get all the details on it. And by the way, don't ever let the homeowner know you're in love with it. All right? So, yeah, I'm a salesperson, right? So listen, if you go to buy a house, if you take someone with you, tell them to be quiet. Because they'll go, oh, that is so beautiful. When you walk through the house, you go, and they go, and the realtor's talking about how great it is. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, you could love it. I mean, it could be like, oh my God, you know. But when they, you just kind of go, oh, okay. I see it, maybe. You don't ever let them know you're interested. Okay? All right, y'all got that? Why? Well, either they will say, oh, we got 3 bids. Do you really want this house? And if you've been in there, oh my God, that is so old. And you're like falling and just falling all over everything and just like, same thing on the car lot. If you're on a car lot and you see your dream car, you just, okay? It's okay. Or if you looked at several lots, you just say, or if you looked at it online and shopped online, yeah, you know, I saw one online that was similar to that, and it was like this much. Right? So be conscious of that. Next of all, know where the fire hydrants are. Right? Because if a house catches on fire and there's no fire hydrants close by, what's going to happen? It's going to burn down. So the insurance company will do what if your house is not close to a fire hydrant? Yes, they will raise up the price on your insurance. It'll go through the roof. Okay? So what's that? You need to know interest rates. You need to know school zones. You need to know flood zones. You need to know about the fire district. All right? So make sure that you're aware of those things. All right? So, but what happens if you find yourself where you got bad credit, you messed up, etc.? What do? You can rebuild, you can recover, but it takes what? Time. And what is that first thing we talked about? What do you need to do? Budget, and then work to get it down, right? You need to work and strive to get that under control. Now, if you have, there's a lot of different methods to getting rid of debt and helping with credit score and things like that. First of all, pay your bills on time. Number 2 is if you're trying to get rid of debt, you're trying to fix your credit score, use something called snowballing. Snowballing is you take and say you have, 5 bills and one is $50, a month, but the balance on it is like $250. But you pay $50 a month. The next one is you pay $75 a month, but the balance is $1,000, and you just keep going. You start paying off that $50. You pay off the $250, right? But the moment you get the $250 off, you immediately take that $50 and start paying an extra $50 on the second highest bill. Okay, so if you're paying $50 and $75, you pay that one off. Now you start paying $125 on that one, and you get it paid off. And what will happen is you'll actually see it'll be like a snowball effect. Then you take that 125 and add to the next bill, and you'll see yourself be able to get that debt under control. Right? And of course, last but not least, prosperity. All of us want to be successful. All of us want to make a lot of money, build wealth, financial growth. Guys, you can't get to the investment until you take care of the basics. Okay? You can't get everybody wants to be wealthy. Everybody wants to be or at least comfortable to get there. It takes debt sometimes to get there. Sometimes people will tell you, don't get another credit card. Don't do this. And I'm stepping back for just a second because I didn't teach you this. Part of your credit score has to do with how much available balance you have. Okay? So if you had $5,000 worth of credit, and on that, and 1,000 of that is on a credit card, you actually get punished once you spend over $300 on that credit card. That sounds crazy, right? They give me a $1,000 limit. If I go over 30% on the usage and I stay there, it actually dings my score. Okay? So if you have $1,000, you really need to spend, and that doesn't mean that if you pay it off. Okay? Let's talk about maintaining a balance month after month. If you have $1,000, for every $1,000, you need to keep it under that 30%, or it will devastate your credit score. Okay? But one of the ways you can help that, say you have $1,000, and you really can't afford to pay that $300 down, but your credit score is good enough, but you need to be up just a little bit more before you can actually get another credit card for $2,000. Now what's your total available credit? $3,000, right? But you haven't used those cards. How much percentage you still have the $300 balance, but it's only 10% usage. That makes sense? So how much credit you have versus how much you use also impacts your credit score. Now, I personally have 3 or 4 credit cards that one has like a $5,000 balance on it, one has a $3,000 balance on it. I don't even use the card. I will never use them. I just got them so that my credit availability on the card that I use for my business would give me more usage on that one card. I only have that one payment. So I'm able to put a lot more toward it versus paying 3 minimum payments. I just pay one, and I can pay a little bit more than the minimum payment. Okay. Back to the investment, guys. I would encourage you, when it comes to investments and bank accounts and things like that, the basic place to start saving is your piggy bank. Right? Use your piggy bank, or your mattress or whatever. But then a lot of you understand, if you have money in an account, all of you who have banking accounts right now, check and see if it's just a checking account. How many of you have a checking account that you write checks out of? Anybody?
Or swipe your card.
Or swipe your card. Yeah, good one. Swipe your card. Okay? You have extra money in that account. Well, you're losing. You're losing if you have a bunch of money in a checking account that you don't ever spend. You're actually losing money. Why? Because the value of money is doing what? Going down. So if you had $300 in your account before the tariff thing went in yesterday, it will buy you this much. Well, in 3 weeks, it's going to buy you less. In 5 years, if the trend were to continue, it will buy you less. So you want to put your money somewhere where it can grow. You can put it in something called a money market. A typical checking account and a saving account, checking gives you 0. Saving accounts tends to give you just a little bit. A money market will give you a little bit more, but you can make withdrawals out of it. You can pull money out. And then there's the CD, which is a certified deposit. If you lock your money in, you go, I want a 6-month CD, a 12-month CD, a 18-month CD, a 2024. So you lock the money in for that time. But guess what? They give you more what? Money. They pay you more interest because they know they can count on that money being there. And then you have the IRA that you can get it out, but usually you have to be 59, I think 59 and a half from close to 60. Or you can get it out and you just pay a 10% penalty. If you get the traditional, if you get a Roth, then you can get it out a little early because it's money that you've already paid taxes on. I don't know which one you have. You have the Roth, so you can get you're putting in money that he's already paid taxes on. If you get the traditional, you haven't paid taxes, so if you pull it out, you're going to get penalties and taxes on it. So be smart. Those are your basic banking products, and of course, I can't give financial advice and things like that when it comes to investment. But I use Robinhood. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Robinhood, but it's an easy way right now. Robinhood, you can actually use it almost like a bank account because if you put money in and don't invest it, you don't have to invest it. They're paying interest on the money that's just held in Robinhood. And if you need to, you can get a debit card off of that or a credit card from Robinhood and use it just like it's a you're going to see more of those non-traditional banks from like the Robinhoods of the world doing things like that. And because they don't have a bunch of people working at the bank waiting on you to come in and make a withdrawal or deposit or get a loan, they tend to pay more interest. So places like SoFi and Chime and Robinhood. So. All right. Questions?
You said Robinhood's like what did you say about it?
Non-traditional. It's a non-traditional bank?
Yeah, because I do some stocks. Like my grandparent gave me an account to use off of theirs, but I'm only able to like deposit in some money from like my account to use it. I can use that as a bank. So is that like should I switch to Robinhood? Is that like a
Oh, not back. Investigate Robinhood. Yeah. I don't know. You're talking about they put you into some type of investment account and you're just built off of that. Yeah. But that's what Robinhood. But it's a risk. I'm not. You can be in there and all of a sudden you can be moving money and you can if you're not patient. The stock market guys for 100 years. For those who have stayed in the stock market, they've never lost money. In other words, you'll lose money in value, and the only time you lose money in the stock market is when you sell, right? So if the market goes down and you have to sell, then you're going to lose money, and that's the risk of it. But those who have been able to stay in it, ride the wave, and don't put all your eggs in that basket, they actually, when people who have a strategy of saving, investing, and then when the market goes down, they actually will move some of their money from savings into the stock market. Then when it comes back up, they will make money. Okay, so I think Tesla 5 years ago was $500 and something, right? So if you're buying Tesla now and it goes back up, you're going to see tremendous. But if you had Tesla when it was 500 and you're holding it now, you got to hold on for a while. Or you can just buy. Or you can do what? You can buy a lot more. You can buy twice as much with the same amount of money. And when it goes up a few dollars, it's going up on every single share that you own. Okay? So it's all about your risk tolerance and things like that when it comes to building prosperity and wealth. So know your risk tolerance and operate accordingly. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. You've been a great class, and hopefully you took a few things away. Really quick, what are y'all going to go home and do? All of you who are getting ready to graduate and don't have a credit score?
What's it called?
Authorized user. Authorized user.
Hey, but guys, I'm gonna warn you. Make sure your parents pay their credit cards.
That's
Okay?
not it.
So if your parents also don't have good credit scores, you don't want on.
Well, Yeah, you want to make sure that they pay their.
Yeah.
Now, they can have a bad score,
But they pay on time.
but they pay. Okay, so just the score in and of itself doesn't mean anything. I lost everything and had to start over when I started working for the credit union. I couldn't borrow money from the credit union when I first started because I had lost everything and started over from scratch. And I had to use all of my retirement at that age and everything until I was able to, because I trusted some people and also some investment. Long story short, but my score was bad, but I was paying my bills. Does that make sense? So just bad credit score. But if they don't pay their bills, then it hurts. If they don't pay that credit card, then it hurts you. So make sure of that. But if you have money in an account, guys, get a secure credit card and start your own financial habits of buying, getting credit, paying it off. So if you have an account, just check with your institution and see if they have secure credit cards. You know what they're sibling. My parents don't use that. Yeah, I mean, you don't. Yeah, someone they can add you. Someone else can add you. And if you don't have good credit or you don't have a credit report, that's what you've heard. Someone can go and co-sign with you. That you can use their credit to get a car or whatever. So, yes, you can use. It doesn't have to be your parents. It can be someone else that has it. All right. Thank you, guys. Oh, I forgot to. Oh, God, guys, sorry. There's like a bunch of donuts over here that you guys are supposed to get at the beginning. Here.
So instead, we'll get it at the end. How about that?